Welcome to the Getting Through Today podcast. I'm Brita. Come along with me as I share my story of the ups and downs through chronic illness and depression, all while being a mother of 5. I know healing is possible, and through every phase there is beauty, even if we don't always see it at the time. I know what it feels like to just get through one day at a time. Let's get started. Welcome. Today's episode is all about resilience and the empowering journey of advocating for yourself. I've had many personal experiences where I have had to advocate for myself. My journey with chronic illness and depression has profoundly taught me the true meaning of resilience. If you've listened to any of my other episodes, you know that I have faced some deeply challenging moments. There were days and weeks when the pain, anxiety, and uncertainty felt so overwhelming. There were times I wasn't sure if I'd ever find my way back to myself again. But through it all, I've discovered this little thing called resilience. Not the dictionary's version of recovering quickly, because nothing about my recovery was quick or easy. And you might have experienced these kind of experiences in your life as well. Instead, my resilience meant adapting, growing, and finding a way forward, even in the midst of really hard, long trials. For me, resilience became about discovering strength in my vulnerability, beauty in the brokenness, and courage in the simple act of advocating for myself. When my health struggles began around 2009, I started going to the doctor hoping he'd understand what I was experiencing. Instead, he concluded I was simply depressed and overwhelmed, just saying that my symptoms were because of stress and a busy life. I was a mother with 4 small children. I did freelance graphic design work at home, which I enjoyed. We had a fixer-upper farmhouse. When I listed all the things that were going on in my house, I feel like he didn't even listen to me beyond that and just said, "Oh, you're depressed and overwhelmed." But what he didn't know is that I had always thrived on being active and doing lots of activities. I thrived on it. I loved being busy. I loved being a mom. And his diagnosis just didn't resonate with me. Looking back, yes, I think that was the early signs for me of depression. And I probably should have started a medication at that point that maybe would have helped me to cope better. I don't know. I don't know all the reasons why I didn't, but I just didn't feel like that was what was wrong with me. So I just kept going back again and again to the same doctor, telling him, "Listen, I appreciate that you think that's what's going on, but I don't feel good. I don't feel like myself. I'd like to actually dig a little deeper and see if I can find some answers and not just put a Band-Aid on this." And finally, I think it was probably the 3rd or 4th appointment. It was just a family doctor. He was great. And he did listen to me, but when he finally knew I was not going to give up and just feel like this the rest of my life, he finally started referring me to specialists. Navigating through this medical system was very challenging because some doctors were wonderful, like this family doctor that I started with. He was great. I feel like he truly wanted what was best for me. He truly wanted to help me. He just really didn't know how. But because he referred me to different specialists, I really found some wonderful doctors who I felt genuinely cared about finding solutions to help me. But then there were others that were very quick to dismiss my symptoms or just handed me prescriptions, medications, where the side effects felt worse than my original symptoms. And when that would happen, most of the time I did not go fill those prescriptions. I was like, well, I guess I will deal with what I'm dealing with. I don't want to add things to this that will make it harder and worse. Often I'd leave appointments discouraged and confused, but I trusted myself enough to say no when something didn't feel right. I would refuse those medications I knew were not best for me. And it was hard because I was looking at these doctors to guide me, to help me. And I really didn't know, I had to do a lot of research. I didn't really know what these medications were, what their side effects were. And as I did the research and figured it out, there were so many things that I had to learn so that I could advocate for myself. And instinctively, I always knew it was best for me, even though I didn't know what was going on or what to do for myself. And maybe that sounds conflicting, but really I had to trust. Sometimes it was go to a different doctor and it would take a few months. And I'm like, okay, well, help me find another doctor. And then I would find one. And I felt I was very guided by God, my intuition, my instincts, whatever you want to call it, to the right people that helped me. And each step helped me along the way. And I found that being an advocate for myself, it almost became this daily battle. I was constantly pushing for tests, exploring different kind of treatments, and I was constantly searching for doctors who respected me and what I was feeling and my personal experience. Throughout this journey, there were so many moments of incredible discouragement. With each new diagnosis, each failed attempt at treatments that I tried, it made me wonder why healing had to take so long. I prayed, pleading with God for guidance. And looking back, I can see clearly the ways in which my prayers were answered. But most of the time, it was not with immediate relief or quick solutions. But I had many moments of clarity, strength, and this gentle guidance pointing me toward the next step. And in a lot of those years, I found myself asking why. People around me sometimes would advise me to not ask that question, maybe suggesting it wasn't productive or helpful, but I needed to understand why. Despite advocating for myself, it took so long for answers to come up. I questioned the fairness of it all, especially as I watched friends and family face their ongoing hardships. I asked why? Why do they have to suffer? Why do we have to go through these things? And even though I've asked those questions, I guess it really didn't make me feel better, and I really probably don't have a great answer. But what I've come to realize is that we may never really understand why suffering happens as it does, for ourselves or for the people around us. But the one thing we can try to understand is how to respond better to the things that are coming up in our life. That ultimately we get to choose if and how and when we move forward. We get to choose to support each other. And we get to choose to advocate for ourselves and others, even through all the uncertainty. Today, when I look back, I genuinely appreciate who I've become as a result of all I have endured. Because I can say all the trials, all the suffering, it was hard. I get emotional thinking about it. I'm not sure I would want to do it again. But I do feel like it did refine my character. I have learned empathy like I never knew. And it has strengthened my voice. And I've learned to trust myself like I never knew I needed to. I've found solutions even when things felt impossible. And I got the courage to speak up for what I needed over and over again, even the times when I felt like nobody was listening, that nobody understood and no one was going to help me. I was going to figure it out somehow. And my health struggles forced me to become more compassionate, not just towards others, but towards myself. I learned the incredible value of self-care, good nutrition, rest, and emotional honesty, honoring my own emotions, facing them, feeling them. Now, when I encounter someone facing similar struggles, my heart immediately fills with compassion because I've been there. And it sucks. And it's really, really hard. But why I feel so much joy in sharing my story and my experiences and the resources that help me, is hoping that maybe their journey will be a little easier, maybe a little shorter, but also respecting that everyone's path to healing is their own. I have friends all around me going through hard things. It's been a hard week. I'm supporting friends that are going through things I can't even imagine going through. And maybe we're going through different things, but I tell you what, we've both experienced pain and suffering and grief, maybe in different ways. But had I not gone through what I went through, I wouldn't know how to show up for these friends. And most of the time, it's just listening and saying, I'm sorry that you have to go through that. I'm here for you. I see you and I love you. And some of the greatest joy that I have is getting messages from readers of my book who found comfort in knowing they're not alone. And each time I share my story openly, authentically, and vulnerably, it has become a part of my healing and my advocacy. I want to inspire people to keep advocating for yourself. Ultimately, resilience for me has become not only about enduring life's hardships, but transforming them into opportunities for growth, connection, and purpose. And my hope is that by each time I share my journey, my vulnerability, my story, that others will find encouragement and strength, knowing they have the power within themselves to advocate for themselves, to heal and thrive. There's something out there that will help you. And maybe it's just connecting with other people. Maybe it's just finding compassionate, loving people that can support you in your journey. I feel like learning how to advocate for myself was one of the most empowering experiences of my life, because it taught me to trust my intuition deeply. It taught me to speak confidently to doctors and never settle for anything less than the care I truly deserved. So here's some practical and powerful ways that you can be an advocate for yourself. So number one is clearly identifying your needs. Knowing your needs is the most important part of self-advocacy. I've learned this through my own journey. Often I would research my symptoms. I would prepare myself before visiting the doctors. There were many times I arrived with appointments asking for specific tests to be run because I wanted to find something out. Most of the healthcare providers I met with respected my input and ran these tests. They may have rolled their eyes at me and thought I was going over the top, and they would run the tests. And I also expressed my preference to avoid medications if I could. And I was always communicating this as my care plan with my doctors. I was not opposed to medications, but I didn't want to just take something, like I said earlier, to give me worse side effects than I was already experiencing. When I would encounter a doctor who didn't align with my approach or were dismissive of what I had to say, I would go to somebody else. I would get a second opinion. And it wasn't about finding a doctor who would tell me what I wanted to hear. It was just making sure that this doctor cared enough to run all the tests, to dig a little deeper and make sure I had the care that I needed. Number two, communicating effectively with your healthcare providers. I would have to say that communication can be challenging, especially if you come across a medical professional who is rushed or dismissive or set in their ways. But I found that the more questions I ask and the clearer I am about my expectations, the better outcomes that I would have. There were days when advocating for myself felt exhausting. I remember this really discouraging experience I had with a balance specialist when I was struggling with vertigo. And I had vertigo for about a year. It was terrible. And this balance specialist, when we started out, we were doing all these balance tests and There was just no really clear diagnosis. He had made sure that I didn't have any inner ear problems, and there wasn't any really clear reason why I had this terrible vertigo. But I remember this one day that we had done this balance test, and I had failed the balance test once again. And this specialist suggested that I might be intentionally failing these tests, that it was a real thing, that kind of implying that I was making this up. And I was so angry. I was so frustrated at this point because the last thing I wanted, number one, was to have vertigo. And why would I want to keep doing these balance tests, spending money, coming and doing these tests to not find answers and then just be told, oh, it just must be in your head? It was so frustrating. I left that appointment in tears, and then I was questioning how I could ever find someone to believe me. But that experience taught me that communication is important. I really just wanted somebody who would, if he didn't have the answers, that he could guide me to another doctor or help me in some way. But instead, because he didn't know what was going on, he just acted like it was all my fault and all my problem. And ultimately, it did guide me to other doctors. So really, he was doing me a favor because I didn't need to do any more balance tests. I actually found another doctor down the road. Long story, but I think we found out the real root of the vertigo and was able to resolve it and get feeling better. So if you get frustrated, if you are with a doctor that really isn't listening or maybe dismisses you, just take that as your next step to find the next person. And I'm talking a lot about doctors right now. I saw a lot of doctors, but then I also tried a lot of different modalities. So I'm not just a doctor person. I did start going to doctors, but then I started opening up to so many different healing modalities, and there's so many things to try and do. So I would encourage you, just keep looking for someone who will listen to you. 3, knowing when to seek second opinions or alternative treatments. One essential part of advocating for yourself is recognizing when it's time to move on from a healthcare provider or find some alternative methods of healing. And like I said in the story with this balance doctor, there was a time I just had to be done working with him. And let's be honest, not every provider will resonate with your needs, and that's okay, no matter what treatment or modality it is. I exhausted conventional medical treatments before I even was open to looking into alternative approaches. I didn't even know where to start. But a friend of mine introduced me to a naturopathic doctor who was amazing. I loved her. She's the one that actually found out I had Lyme disease. And I loved her because she did natural treatments. She introduced me to powerful therapies with IV vitamins and minerals. And she did do medication if I needed it. I was on antibiotics for a long time to treat the Lyme and different things. But she also had me on so many supplements and so many great things that were building up my body, strengthening my body. I eventually found the hyperbaric oxygen treatments, just various holistic methods that really supported me and helped heal my body, things that I was not open to when I first started this journey. I would encourage you, if your current treatment isn't working, maybe it's time to explore other options. There's just so many things out there. I would encourage you to keep exploring until you find what aligns with you. You really deserve the care that supports and respects your body and healing process. 4, setting and enforcing healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are crucial. I'm not talking about just in healthcare settings, but in your entire life. When you learn to set clear limits with your energy, your time, your emotional availability, you can create a foundation for greater peace, happiness, and overall well-being. I think sometimes people think when you set a boundary, it's mean or something. I feel like boundaries are not about pushing people away or being mean. They're about clearly communicating your needs and expectations so that any relationships that you have can remain healthy and sustainable. For example, there were many times that I had to establish boundaries with family or friends when I was going through my health journey. There was some people that I just wasn't able to be around because it was too draining. I needed people around me that were positive and were supportive. And the people that weren't, honestly, I just couldn't be around them because I was dealing with so much. I feel like if you state the kind of support that is helpful or knowing what type of interactions drain you, it really is powerful. So if you tell someone what you need and they're not able to give that, then set that boundary that maybe that's not a person that can support you on your healing journey. And I know that's difficult. I had plenty of people along the way that kind of drifted off that I'm not friends with anymore because they weren't able to support me in my journey, and that's okay. And they needed to move on, and they needed to be around people that could support them as well. I know sometimes setting boundaries, it could maybe feel uncomfortable, especially if you've always put others first. If you're anything like me, the more you practice and enforce those boundaries, it really does become easier. When you set healthy boundaries, it actually is a really great act of self-respect and self-care. And you need to prioritize your own well-being. Everyone's healing journey is uniquely personal. Of course, it's shaped by each individual experiences, beliefs, and the way you feel about yourself. And whether you resonate more strongly with traditional medicine, alternative therapies, or a balance of both, the key is to learn to deeply trust yourself to navigate your own healing path. No one knows your body and mind better than you, and trusting your inner wisdom is crucial to finding what truly works for your health and wellness. Like I said, for me, my healing path started very traditionally. I sought help from mostly medical professionals when I started this journey. But as I continued to go and I felt like I exhausted the medical field, I would go to a doctor until they couldn't help me anymore. And then I would go to the next doctor until they couldn't help me anymore. And I felt like I was hitting these roadblocks, all these unanswered questions. And then there was treatments that didn't align with what my body needed. But that's when I began exploring the more holistic and alternative therapies. And this opened an entirely new world to me, introducing modalities to me that I was never open to before. If you would have told me even 5 years ago that I was going to be a hypnotherapist, I would have laughed in your face and said, yeah, that's weird. But the neatest thing is once I learned about what hypnotherapy really was and how I could help people and how it has helped me, I love it. And there's so many things that have empowered me and supported my health and really changed how I viewed healing and wellness. I've discovered that healing is not one size fits all. I feel like traditional medicine can be incredibly effective and necessary. I do take my kids to the doctor. I still go to the doctor if needed, but it doesn't always address the whole picture. So I find that even if you're seeing a doctor, you might want to branch out and find other therapies to kind of fill that gap so that you can nurture yourself and support your overall well-being. When I started this journey, I completely trusted these medical experts. And I didn't start really checking in with myself. I would listen to them, I would take it. But when I started to really listen deeply to my body, paying attention to myself, I was guided to different things that would help me. And that's really important on your journey, to trust yourself, try different things. There may be people that laugh when you try different things. I've tried plenty of things where I think people were like, oh my gosh, you're weird. Why are you doing that? But when you haven't hit rock bottom, you don't know what you would try or do until you have hit rock bottom. And once you do, at least for me, I will pretty much try anything. If someone recommends something and says this might work, you better believe I'm going to give it a try because I wanted to feel better so much. And throughout this whole process that I've experienced, I've really realized the importance of just staying open-minded. I found that healing, it often requires being flexible, being willing to explore or experiment or adjust as needed. It's really about having the courage to stand firm in your choices, even if other people don't understand them or if they're not supported by others. If you're feeling overwhelmed or unsure of where to start, know that you're not alone. Reach out, research, ask questions, and seek out other people who've walked similar paths. Gather all the information, listen to what I've done, listen to what other people have done, and then listen to what feels right to you. It could be very different than what I've done, but your voice matters. Your experiences are valid, and your instincts are your greatest guide. Ultimately, the most important part of your healing journey is giving yourself permission to trust your unique path and honoring the profound wisdom within yourself. Embrace this, lean into curiosity, and trust that you'll be guided to the care, the treatments, and modalities that resonate most deeply with your healing needs. Let's now take a moment together for a guided reflection. If you're able to safely, go ahead and close your eyes gently. Take a slow, deep breath in, and then slowly exhale. Let your body relax, allowing yourself to release any tension you're carrying. And now, with kindness and compassion, ask yourself quietly, what do I truly need right now? Pause for a moment and let that question sink deeply into your heart and your mind. What you might need is emotional support, someone to listen to your experiences without judgment, to offer empathy, or just simply be there to understand you. Perhaps it's clear medical guidance or finding a healthcare provider who genuinely hears your concerns and validates your experiences. Or maybe it's giving yourself full permission to rest, heal, and recharge without guilt or pressure. I'll let you decide. As you reflect, you may notice some emotions or thoughts or physical sensations that arise. And allow yourself to acknowledge these feelings openly, without judging them, without expectations. And remember, whatever comes up for you is valid. And now, with clarity and courage, commit to one action that you can take this week. It can be a very small step that will help you better advocate for your own needs. For example, this could be scheduling that doctor's appointment you've been putting off, or setting a healthy boundary at home or work, or just finding time for some self-care. Hold this commitment in your mind and gently affirm to yourself, my needs are valid and I deserve to advocate for them. Take another deep breath, filling your body with reassurance and trust in your ability to honor your needs. And as you exhale slowly, allow yourself to release any doubt or hesitation. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes, returning to the space with a renewed sense of empowerment and clarity. Remember, advocating for yourself is an ongoing journey, one step at a time, one day at a time. You have the strength and courage to take this next step. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It really means the world to me that you have taken this time to listen, to reflect, and take this journey alongside me. If today's conversation resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe to the podcast, leave a thoughtful review, and share this episode with someone who might find encouragement in hearing it. Your support helps these conversations reach more people who truly need them. As we close today, I want to leave you with this reminder. Your journey matters deeply. Your voice has immense power, and your ability to heal and transform is greater than you might realize. No matter where you are on your journey right now, please know that you're never alone, and every step forward, no matter how small, it counts. Until next time, remember it's important to advocate for yourself, to trust in yourself, and continue moving forward, one courageous, intentional step at a time.